I am at page 491 of my book. You can check in your book as well. We talked about the outline of the essay. Now we are talking about good or bad style of essay writing. So I have to skip and I have to be very fast today so that we can cover as much as possible. We shall be having 2 consecutive classes, and they will last up until at least 7:30 or 7:25. So let's see how far we go. So stay patient, आवाज बेहतर हो जाएगी आपकी. Just listen. So we talked about the outline and now how to write an essay. Choice of a subject, page 490 is from my book, and check in your own books as well. 490. This is about how to write an essay. Not much to be said on this point. Very often we have only options choice. That is to say, we have to take what is given to us and have no choice at all. But we have a choice. Let us choose the subject about which really we really know most. For it is easier to write a good essay from knowledge than from guesswork. We should devote at least 15 minutes to the understanding of the subject, to thinking it out. It is most important to let me see, there is a misprint in my book. The scope of the essay and to plan it out. That will save us a good deal of trouble. Outline. So there is the most important part for outline. And what is this? Having chosen our subject, we should proceed to make an outline. An outline is helpful in many ways. It is a help in number 1, argument, number 2, proportion, and number 3, keeping to the point. So there are 3 things that are actually very vital in terms of writing an essay. When you write an outline, first thing is the argument part. Basically, the first thing is the arrangement part. You arrange your things accordingly. You create headings and you construct your argument according to those headings. Number 2, proportion. What proportion of your essay will be spent on which aspect of that essay, and what portion of that essay will be devoted to which portion of essay. This means to say, if you are writing an essay, for example, on a famous personality or on some famous event, for instance, if you are supposed to write on the current pandemic or the current crisis of coronavirus, you will first create an outline. An outline will basically be spent or written in order to actually encapsulate what you are supposed to write. So the proportion is very important. On which aspect will you be more focused on? Will you be writing more about the conspiracy theories? Will you be talking about the failure of global health system? Or will you be focused around the contribution of one particular country and the spread of this pandemic? पेज नंबर दोबारा मैं बता रहा हूँ 490 पेज है मेरी किताब के अंदर 490-91 के ऊपर अभी मैं मूव करने वाला हूँ. So arrangement of the essay and arrangement of your argument is the key thing in terms of as far as the writing of the outline is concerned. Number 2, proportion. Proportion के हिसाब से भी आपको अपने essay की outline देनी होती है कि भी outline में आप बताएंगे कि किस aspect के ऊपर आप कितना ज़्यादा portion और essay जो है वो ज़्यादा spend करेंगे. For example, I gave you example of current pandemic. If you're supposed to write about it, will you be writing about the crisis? Will you be writing about our mode of existence? Will you be writing about China? Will you be writing about our lifestyles and all that stuff? So this all depends कि आप किस aspect के ऊपर ज़्यादा focus रखना चाह रहे हैं और किस पे ज़्यादा portion of your words जो है वो आप dedicate करेंगे. And number 3, keeping to the point. So an outline is meant to keep you within certain framework. If you violate that framework, if you go beyond the scope of your reading or writing, you are actually going adrift from the main subject. So that's basically the main purpose of writing an outline. I move to the next page 491. Thus, there will be unity of design in our essay. Essay is basically meant to remain united. If you are writing about coronavirus, you are supposed to stay focused around the subject of this virus. How far has world actually been immune from various kind of viruses. And if you are aware of the viruses that were there in the world before today, for example, the biggest pandemic before today was in 1918 when we saw influenza spread all over the world. But since then, we have seen quite a number of other pandemics that are basically results of or are the consequence of various kinds of viruses. For example, Ebola virus or SARS virus or bird flu and this and that. But this time around, you will have to be very focused around the subject. Why has this current virus been very, very lethal? Thus, there will be unity of design in our essay. Art lies in the concealment of the art. And we should write our essay in such a way that the reader should not be able to detect the design that underlies our efforts. So you have to decide, you have to design your essay as if you are trying to conceal that outline that you have created. So you are not supposed to write headlines or basically the headings. You are not supposed to disclose that you actually divided your essay between this heading and that heading. Rather, you should conceal this thing and arbitrarily construct your essay based upon the outline that you've constructed it in your mind. You should not write headings, but rather you should construct that outline in your own mind. We move to the material for ideas. Having chalked out an outline, we should collect material to fit our ideas and fill up our outline. We should gather ideas continuously, systematically, and carefully. For the first condition of good writing is definite, exact knowledge. Next, we should observe a sense of proportion in the time and the space we devote to the ideas. Then, style. Style must suit the subject. So the first thing was material for ideas. Having chalked out an outline, we should collect material to fit our ideas and fill out outline. We should gather ideas continually, systematically, and carefully. For the first condition of good writing is definite, exact knowledge. Next, we should observe a sense of proportion in the time and space we devote to the development of our ideas. There are two things about writing essays. One essay is the one that is actually given to you in your exam. You appear in an exam of, let's say, an hour or two, and you are given a topic and you start writing that essay based upon whatever amount of knowledge you have about the subject or about that field. But at times, you are supposed to write an essay based upon your everyday work. Those kinds of essays are actually research essays. And those research essays are actually open book exams or open book essays which are based upon your daily work routine, and they are not supposed to be crammed or they are not supposed to be rote learned. Rather, they are based upon your daily studies and your own understanding and your own contribution in that field. And this is usually done at advanced levels, at MPhil or PhD levels. So at your level, which is a very low level actually, recently, you are supposed to write crammed essays or those essays which should actually prove that you are able to write composition pieces which are hardly 2 or 3 pages long. But the other essay, which is the real essay or an advanced essay, is actually a result of thorough research which is done through library studies, through internet research, through your own understanding of things, through your own consultation of all kind of data that is available either on internet or in the library. So you have to be you have to be aware of both kinds of essays, the essays that are written based upon your cramming of that field, and the other essay which is based upon your daily research in that particular field. So currently I'm talking about the lower level of essay writing, which is based upon the proof that you are able to write composition pieces without having consulted any book in your own hand. So once you have you're given a topic, you're supposed to write an outline, and once you have written or produced an outline, you then start writing your essay based upon whatever knowledge you have about those points that you have tabulated in your outline. Once you have created that outline, you have to fill that outline through your own ideas, arguments, and words. Then comes style. Style must suit the subject. We should be simple as well as sincere in what we write, clear as well as concise, interesting as well as to the point. We should not write what we do not know ourselves. So we should not write those things about which we have no idea. For example, if you are a business studies student and if you try to poke your leg in literary studies or in history or let's say computer science, you will be going beyond your scope and beyond your status. So stay within your own field and talk about those things which you know, rather than poking your nose in those aspects of things which you hardly know about. If we have something to say and our mind is full of it, we shall be able to say it well. Basically simple चीज है, अगर हम किसी चीज के बारे में कुछ जानते हैं, उसी सूरत में हम उसके बारे में कुछ कहने के काबिल होंगे. For example, if you are sitting in a drawing room in the company of friends or in the company of some educated friends, and they are talking on some intellectual subject. For example, if they are talking about French Revolution, and you know nothing about that French Revolution, you will then not be allowed to speak in their company because you will be spoiling that whole atmosphere because you don't know anything about that subject. So if you are aware of that subject only, then you will be allowed and you will look good contributing in that discussion. But if you don't know anything about that subject, it is better that you stay silent and don't say anything. So this is how what we mean. This is what we mean by style. So always talk about those subjects or write about those subjects about which you know. If you don't know about those subjects, leave the exam. Don't sit in the exam. Don't talk anything about that subject. Then comes, if however we merely try to be clever to show off, our style will betray it and we shall write a bad essay. And even that, and at times if you don't know anything about some subject, but you are able to write something, but you have no knowledge about that subject, you'll struggle. So don't do so. Rather, you'll end up with a very bad essay. Then comes the beginning and the end. The two most important parts of an essay are the beginning and the end. The beginning must be bright, striking, and attractive so as to arrest the reader's attention at once. If you're writing an essay, if there is a zone, we can just wait a while. Yeah, मुझे पता चल गया था. I'm going to take a pause. Those of you who want to offer prayer, they can go and rejoin. Meanwhile, I shall be continuing the topic. आपके पास किताब है, आप दोबारा आके वहीं से join कर सकते हैं. There are not many things which need extensive amount of explanation. Those who want to offer prayer, they can go and join. Meanwhile, I shall be continuing my session. I shall be having two back-to-back sessions of 40 minutes each. So I should be continuing up until 7:30. And then I have two back-to-back sessions of section B as well up until 9. So as our ends, I resume from 667, page 491, the beginning and the end. The two most important parts of an essay are the beginning and the end. The beginning must be bright, striking and attractive so as to arrest the reader's attention and funds. It must form a fitting introduction to the main body of the essay. The following points should be noted. Beginning should be very striking. It should be based upon clear ideas, and it should be very shocking as well. Shocking in the sense that you should reveal some of those points and aspects which are truly a product of your own mind. So the following points should be noted. We should set about the main themes as quickly as we can without wasting our time on preliminary statements such as I take up my pen, in the short time allowed, and the like. Instead of Azan mere yahan khatam ho gayi hai, so let me continue please. So when you are writing an essay, you should announce your topic right away. You should talk about the key themes right away rather than wasting too much time and energy in setting a preamble. You should go ahead very quickly. Number two, we should avoid stiff stereotypical introductions. Number two, we should avoid stiff stereotype introductions. Introductions which are very typical or which are very hackneyed kind of introduction should be avoided. Only those introductions are encouraged or admired which hit the main subject very quickly. Number three, if the title is vague or obscure, we should begin by defining or elucidating it. If the topic is very obscure or complex and not very clear, we should expand it and explain it right away in the very beginning. We should begin by defining or elucidating it, but we must be careful to give a full definition if one is attempted at all. A common error occurs in sentences like the following. Number one, holidays. This is the period when people leave off work. Holidays, this is the period when people leave off work. Number two, library. This is the place where books are kept. So you should avoid being too simplistic. If there is an essay on holidays, you should not define about holidays, what holidays are. Everybody knows what holidays are. If you are asked to write something about library, you should resist from introducing what a library. Elucidating means explaining. It means expanding something, giving an explanation of something. So we move to number four. Often an apt quotation forms a good beginning. At times, when you write an essay, if you started with a quotation or a saying by some famous personality, for instance, a poet, a famous personality like Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Nehru, Nelson Mandela, or any other famous personality, or a prophet, our prophet, peace be upon him, this is always good to start your essay with a beautiful saying by some great personalities. We should not spoil our essay by a vague or commonplace ending. Our essay, if it is constructed through strong arguments, it should not end or be spoiled through ordinary ending. Your conclusion should be strong. It should be based upon a fantastic argumentation that you did during your essay. So if you provided good arguments in your essay, the conclusion of those arguments should be very strong and thorough. If it is very simple and loose, your essay will not be considered as a good essay. So conclusion is very vital. When we have begun it well, it is our business also to end it well. So if the beginning is striking, shocking, and interesting, the end must also be very, very interesting and thorough and conclusive. If there is an abrupt or a feeble conclusion, the impression left on the reader's mind is very poor indeed. For instance, if you are watching a movie, if the end of the movie is haphazard and not convincing, you always leave the cinema or the TV screen or cinema screen disappointed. You always say that the conclusion was not very impressive, this was not very convincing. Same is the case with the drama. Same is the case with any play. Same is the case with anything else. If the conclusion is sloppy, not convincing, you will not like that essay, drama, play, novel, or whatever you want, or a story. Therefore, Therefore, the end should not be forced. We should make it as natural as possible. So the end of the essay must be very natural, and it should be a logical result of the whole debate that you did during the whole essay that you wrote. The following are effective methods of ending an essay. एक essay को खत्म करने के effective methods जो है, जो कि rules की शक्ल में समझाए गए हैं, 4-5, वो ये है. A brief summary of previous arguments or statements which with reflections and conclusions. So whatever you said during your essay or in the space of your essay, E19BBA016 has a question. Do write it down here. So a brief summary of previous arguments or statements with reflections and conclusions. This should be written. Number 2, simple reflections upon. So anybody who has a question, he or she can write it in the chat portion. I won't allow it through the mic because there will be always so much noise. Number 2, simple reflections upon and conclusions drawn from the subject matter of the essay. Simple reflections upon and conclusions drawn from the subject matter of the essay. And please write down your name as well when you write your question. Thank you. Simple reflections upon and conclusions drawn from the subject matter of the essay. So, whatever you write, you have to draw simple conclusions from your arguments as well. If there are no simple conclusions available through your debate, then it means that your debate was unfinished. You did not conclude your debate on a convincing edge. Number 3, a single striking sentence. So the conclusion should be based upon a single striking sentence as well. If your conclusion is lacking in a single striking sentence at the end, it is not a proper conclusion. If you are still confused in your conclusion part, then you are missing something. चूंकि अभी तक हम rules की आपका सवाल मुझे पहुंच गया. You're saying that this is how to write an essay, and this is what should be there in the essay, and this is what should not be there in the essay. Immediately after this page, you will be given some samples of the essay. There you come to know what schemata or what scheme is actually followed in the essay and how an essay is written. So once we move to page 494, there we get the idea through the practice part of the essay. फाइन. तो अभी तक हम उसके रूल्स देख रहे हैं कि हमने कंक्लूजन में किन चीजों को करना है और किन चीजों को नहीं लिखना है, और इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या चीज होना चाहिए और आउटलाइन क्या होती है, क्या चीज है. ठीक है. तो व्हेन यू कम टू द सैंपल्स ऑफ दोस एसेज इन द एंड, probably at page 495 or 494, there you'll come to know that an essay is based upon outline, an essay is based upon a clear introduction, an essay is based upon a very clear and an essay contains an argumentation and a clear scheme of things, and an essay is actually based upon arrangement, proportion, and staying to the point. These are the things which are there to be met and adhere to. Only then you will be able to write a very proper essay. So that's why these things are extremely vital. Even people who are writing long composition pieces at MPhil or PhD level, if they don't know about these things or rules, they will always struggle to write a proper essay. So you need to know about the infrastructure of an essay first, and only then you are allowed to attempt an essay. If you're not aware about the rules or about the manual of how to write an essay, you'll always struggle to write an essay. So once we come to that part of the practice part of the essay, let's say within the next 5 minutes, you'll come to know how those rules are actually applied in those essays. So that's why this is very vital. So confusion is actually extremely misplaced. So within the next 10 minutes, the meeting will conclude and we'll switch to another 40-minute session. So be on your guard. 6:51 पे meeting conclude हो जाएगी. So let's quicken to the end of this particular part, and then within the next 9 minutes, I plan to move to the practice part. So simple reflections upon. Number 3, a single striking sentence should be there in the conclusion, and number 4, an authoritative quotation bearing upon the subject. So if you want to give a very authoritative statement or a quotation in the end, that will also sum things up. For example, many people put what we call various verses in the end of the essay, जिसको कहते हैं अशार लिख देते हैं आखिर में, या किसी फेमस शख्स की लाइनें लिख देते हैं, या कोई लंबी कोट दे देते हैं. So this is also very useful in the sense that it enhances the effect of the entire essay. Attendance आपकी दोनों sessions के end के ऊपर होगी, so it doesn't mean that you have attendance and you skip. By the end of this session, your attendance will be marked. Number 5, a climax. A climax of the essay is very important. Once you end your essay, it should sum things up in a very proper way. That is summation, conclusion. And 668, avoid bad style. When you're writing an essay, you should always avoid bad style, incongruous and confused construction. If the construction of your essay is very haphazard and weird, you'll not be writing a good essay. So you should always try to avoid those essays where there is a complicated construction of those things. Number 2, careless sentences. If your sentences are not clear, if they are very careless, if there are tense errors, you should avoid them. Misplaced correlation and correlatives and adverbs. For example, quickly, इस तरह के words को अगर आप बिला वजह use कर रहे हैं, suddenly का word बिला वजह use कर रहे हैं, तो ये they also create a very haphazard impression upon the readers. Then comes 4, ambiguity. Complexity अगर होगी तो वो भी ठीक नहीं है. Number 5, inexact phraseology. अगर आपके phrases जो है correct नहीं है, अगर आप errors कर रहे हैं sentence construction में, they are also problem. Tautology, needless repetition in the same sentence of the same thought in different words. Yeah, if you are repeating your ideas through different words, you are also creating a very bad impression. For example, if you have said something at page 1 and if you're saying the same thing with different words at page 3, your reader will not be impressed. Reader will be saying that you are wasting his time and boring him. Repetition. Sorry, pleonasm, redundancies of expression. There are some expressions which are not required, which are redundant, which are misplaced actually. So you should avoid using some of those sentences. Repetition in a sentence of the same word or expression. Verbosity, the use of too many words where a few words are sufficient for the purpose. If there are words used which are too many and one word could be sufficient to express the same thing, you should avoid using too many words conveying the same thing. Fine writing, fondness for the high flowered expression. If you're using difficult expression or difficult words in your sentences, they are not going to impress anybody. The use of pretentious words. If you know some beautiful word, for example, if you know a word like gregarious, if you're using that word too often and without any reason, you're also creating a bad impression. Colloquialism. If you're using some everyday language words, you're also creating a bad impression. Slang, cant, vulgar expressions and puns. If you're using those words which you use in your normal day-to-day life, they are also not welcomed at all. If you're using sexist words, or if you're using those words which are vulgar or are not very polite, they are also creating bad impressions. Foreign words and phrases. If you are writing an essay in English, but if you use a couple of words from French, they are also not welcome because you are supposed to adhere to one language only. Number 5, coin and far-fetched words. If you are trying to coin new words, unborn. For example, if you are saying a word untrue, this word is not very common. So you should try to avoid those words which are coined. And then comes archaism. If you are using expressions which are very old and hackneyed expressions, try to avoid them. 17, bad spelling and punctuation. If your spellings are bad and wrong, you will leave an impression that you do not know English, you're not a native speaker, or you do not know English language well, and your punctuation should be correct. If you're using semicolon where colon was sufficient, or where a full stop is required, if you're writing a comma, you're also leaving a bad impression upon the reader. Do not try to be humorous because successful humor is most difficult to achieve. So if you're trying to create humor through your language, if you're not a very intelligent person, try to avoid it, because humor only comes from a very intelligent mind. So if you're not intelligent, try not to sound humorous. You'll sound funny, but not humorous, rather ridiculous. The 669, abbreviations, handwriting, etc. We should try to avoid the use of abbreviations or symbols such as etc. It is needless to point out that a good handwriting is a great boon and that a neat, legible handwriting pays much in the university exam. We should leave a margin about an inch on the left hand. The first line of paragraph should begin half an inch to the right and the other lines of the paragraph. Attention should be paid to the use of brackets and to divisions of the essay into paragraphs. So your style should be very good. Your abbreviation and handwriting should also be very legible and readable. Number 670, use of past tense in narration. In narrating anything, we should not use the historic present, but keep to the past tense throughout. We should always be writing in past indefinite tense. Otherwise, there is likely to be confusion of tenses. So you should write in past indefinite tense. He took, I went, I did this, but don't write, I had finished my work. No, rather stay to past indefinite tense alone. 671, use of I, we, you, he, one. If our narration is a story of incident drawn from our own experience, we may employ the personal pronoun I. This is first person singular. I means मैं, खुद. This is called first person singular, and we is first person plural. Fine. You means second person singular, and you in terms of the plural is second person plural, and he is third person singular, and they is actually third person plural. So you should write I only if the incident is about your own self. I bring the mic again near my mouth. But in any essay, its use must be. But in any essay, its use must be scrupulously avoided. अगर आप essay लिख रहे हैं और उसमें आप I का इस्तेमाल बहुत ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं, this should be avoided unless this is an essay which is based upon your own experience. Your I must be absent in everything. आपका खुद आपकी जो मैं है उसको absent ही होना चाहिए, चाहे जिंदगी हो चाहे आपका ऐसे हो, आपने अपनी मैं को मार के रखना है. But in any essay, its use must be scrupulously avoided. An essay should be general, be an impersonal, or as possible. We should not try to imitate famous writers in this respect. The worth of a personal impression depends upon the worth of the personality that recorded. So within, let's say, 1 or 2 minutes, this first meeting will conclude, either suddenly or on its own. So I'll invite you for another call within 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes again. So the worth of a personal impression depends upon the worth of the personality that records it. Therefore, such expressions as it seems to me, as far as I think to be to the best of my knowledge, I feel sure, and I'm convinced need not be employed. So you should not be very personal. Your personal opinion doesn't matter. You should leave your own personal self behind. Similarly, the use of we and you should also be avoided. So we and you should also be avoided. It should be an impersonal essay. It is better to write there is little doubt instead of we have little doubt. So it should be a neutral sentence. A sentence is an impersonal sentence when you say there is little doubt. But if you say we should have little doubt, it becomes a very personal essay. It is better to write there is a little doubt instead we have जी आप नमाज पढ़ने के लिए जा सकते हैं, मैं आपको 5 मिनट की ब्रेक दे दूंगा इसके बाद. It is better to write there is little doubt instead of what we have. That prayer break, we were at page 493. So when you're writing an essay, you should not find fault with the subject. Rather, you should accept this topic as it is and do brainstorming and follow everything. You should be a well-read person. And once you have chosen the subject, do brainstorming, prepare a good outline and start writing it. And don't express that you don't know much about it and it's not possible to write a lot about that subject. And finally, once you have written the essay, you should provide the revision of your essay in that final part. You should correct spellings. You should also correct the punctuation parts and also know if you have actually filled in all the parts that required to be done in the outline part of your essay. There in the second part of essay writing, there you have various samples of all sorts of essays. As we read at page 487, there are 4 different kinds of essays: reflective essays, narrative essays, reflective essays, expository essays, and one more. Let me just remember what was the 4th one. So one was narrative, the other one was descriptive essay, third one was reflective essay, and the 4th one was expository essay. So here in the first part, we shall be reading some of those essays which are related to narrative or descriptive and reflective essays. So one is an Indian fair, the other one is a visit to a place of interest. So this is also based upon your own experience at visiting some place, true or imaginary story. And there comes number 3 essay about an ideal summer holiday. This is about your own impressions about certain phenomenon of nature. And then comes number 4, hiking. So this is also about walking trip to the hills. This is also another personal experience that you have somewhere. I move immediately to page 502, where you will be required to talk about a great person. So this is a kind of an autobiographical. This is a kind of a biographical sketch of a person. You write about a personality. So this essay is about a great man, and the name of that person was Booker T. Washington. That person was a famous figure in history. Let's see how the author begins the essay and how he actually builds the context. We again remember this is an essay about a great person I admire the most, and his name is Booker T. Washington. And look how the author is actually starting the essay. How is the introduction? We in India are well aware of the drawbacks of social antagonisms. Our caste system is the outcome of race eugenics. So he's starting from India and he's trying to contextualize his personality. His name is Booker T. Washington. He says that in India, we are aware of drawbacks of social antagonism. Social antagonism is actually an unrest or bad relationship between social groups. मुख्तलिफ ग्रुपों के दरमियान, सोसाइटी के मुख्तलिफ ग्रुप्स के दरमियान आपस में नफरत और दुश्मनी के को हम सोशल एंटेगोनिज्म कहते हैं. For example, people living in DHA, if they have a very bad feeling or an enmity against people living in, let's say, Beria town, you would say that there is a social antagonism between people living in one neighborhood of the city and people belonging to another neighborhood of the city. So social antagonism is actually a hatred or enmity between various groups of people. Our caste system is the outcome of race eugenics. The problem of the modern world, which never even occurred to our ancestors, is to do justice between race and race and to give the maximum of liberty to every race under the sun. So he is actually also saying that India is also a place where various races and various castes are not living in a very, very hospitable and in a very, very loving relationship with one another. And that's maybe why there is a lot of unrest in India. India is one of the strong centers of interracial relationships. So as far as various races are concerned, India is a strong center. All sorts of races are always at odds with each other. There can be no formula for solving racial problems. The solution must come from a change of attitude, which must be exemplified in countless individual cases. The races which have been enslaved and oppressed in the past must forgive those who exploited them, for they did so through ignorance. So there is one solution, that those who have been wronged by some races in the past, those people should forgive them, because otherwise this process will go on and on and on, and this violent spree will continue forever. So caste today means nothing more than a group of families whose members dine and marry among themselves, and not with members of any other group who will not take food which has been touched by a person of other caste. So the caste system is actually based upon hatred and prejudice between various kinds of racial groups in India that not only marry amongst each other, but they also do not dine or eat with people belonging to other castes and racial groups as well. So this thing is actually not based upon human relationship. This is rather based upon racial preferences. Whatever may have been the causes in past times, there is no sense left in the practice now. Buddha strongly condemned caste by birth. He recommended vocational classes by birth, suitable character, mental and moral constitution, and occupational disposition. So Buddha, Mahatma Buddha, he always encouraged that if ever there was a difference between one person and the other, this was always based upon the vocation or profession of that person. If there was a person who was a tradesman or a person belonging to the profession of trade, you could not say that his race is that of a trader. If a person was a carpenter by profession, you could not actually call him as a carpenter by race. दूसरा हमारे मुल्क में है कुछ लोगों को जुलाहा, मोची, पुराई इस तरह के मुख्तलिफ जातों में डिवाइड किया गया है, जबकि ये एक बहुत ही आउटडेटेड और एंटी ह्यूमन रवैया है. This is not something which should be encouraged. Those are professions of those people. They should not be considered as their races. जिस तरह हुजाम या नाई कह के लोगों को एड्रेस किया जाता है और उनको look down upon किया जाता है. This is something which is absolutely inhuman. The Mahatma Buddha also said so. In this connection, we can learn much by studying the life of a great American Negro, Booker T. Washington. So there is one very famous African American from 19th century. His name was Booker T. Washington, and his life history can be a good lesson for us as well, living in India, who have been subjected to violence based upon race. Within 5 minutes, we should be. So he was born in Virginia in 1858 when slavery of black men to the white was recognized American institution. So this man was born in 1858, 1 year after the start of India's war of independence against the British in 1857. So this man was born in 1858, and the year is very significant because 3 years after that year, America indulged in the Civil War. And that Civil War was between 13 states in the south of America, in south of North America, and the Confederate and the industrial North. Within 10 minutes, this class will conclude. I have been given a reminder, so stay patient. So America, as I just told you, is a new continent which was discovered in 1492 by Christopher Columbus. And soon after its discovery, many people migrated from Europe to America, got settled there, and they started agriculture over there in southern states of America, and they cultivated sugarcane, cotton, and tobacco. And those crops required, the cultivation of those crops required manpower. And for that manpower, they didn't have so many people. And in order to do this, they brought people of black color from Africa, and those people they were subjected to slavery in America, and slavery was a common practice in America from 1600s onward. From 1650 onward, slavery became a normal institution in America, and the current black African American individuals in America still cannot forget the atrocities they suffered at the hands of the white Americans over the years due to that old institution called. पेपर से रिलेटेड आप क्वेश्चन बता देंगे. डोंट बी सो hasty. आपको टाइम आने को. I'm talking about slavery and how that person's life history in 1858 is very significant in terms of understanding of the idea of race in America, because black people have always been subjected to acts of violence on the basis of their color. They have been subjected to prejudice. All right, folks, this is where we end. I have to skip the class right now. We shall meet next week, inshallah. Thank you very much. Take care.